welcome to China's Living Legacy.
大家好，欢迎来到我的频道。
Okay, let's dive straight in. Today we're getting into the life of Li Si, a really major figure from the Qin dynasty. His story is just, wow, ambition, amazing success, and then, well, a pretty catastrophic fall.
It really is dramatic, and the sources we've looked at, they give us this incredible view into his life, his motivations, right from these early sharp observations he made through to unifying China, and then, yeah, the tragedy at the end.
Exactly. So for you listening, the mission here is to really get a handle on those key moments, those turning points in Li Si's career, what was driving him, and maybe more importantly, what does his life tell us about, the politics of the Qin era? It was a tough environment.
Absolutely. We've got biographies, analyses of his thinking, later histories reflecting back. Quite a mix.
Yeah, quite a bit to work with. So maybe the big question to start with is, how does someone go from being, frankly, a low-level local official to the absolute top, only to have it all come crashing down so fast?
It's such a compelling story, and it starts, interestingly enough, with a pretty visceral moment. The records mention his time as a grassroots civil servant back in Shu. He's in the dormitory latrine, of all places.
Okay, rats in a latrine. Not exactly the most glamorous start, but there was more to it than just seeing pests, right? What did he notice?
Right. He saw that these rats, the ones in the latrine, were basically scrambling for scraps. They were nervous, jumpy, always looking over their shoulder, so to speak. But then he saw other rats living in the granary, and they were completely different. Fat, comfortable, living large, not bothered by anyone.
Okay, and that contrast, that really hit him.
It was profound. For Li Si, this wasn't just about rats having different lifestyles. It was like a fundamental truth about how the world worked.
Ah, okay. So this is where it gets really interesting for understanding him.
Exactly. He basically concluded that your position, your environment, that's what determines your fate. The rats themselves weren't different, but where they lived changed everything.
That's a very practical, almost starkly materialist viewpoint, isn't it?
It really is. And it lit a fire under him. He knew he had to change his position fundamentally if he wanted a different life. That latrine was not where he wanted to be.
So that's the aha moment about his motivation. Okay, so knowing the latrine wasn't the goal, how did he start looking for his own granary?
Well, he realized his current job wasn't going to cut it. So he made a really key decision. Get more knowledge. He actually quit his job to go study under Xunzi.
Xunzi.
Yeah.
Now, he was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the late Warring States period.
Huge. A really prestigious scholar. You have to imagine studying with someone like Xunzi back then. That was serious intellectual training.
A real center of learning. So he wasn't just aiming for any education. He went straight to the top. But it wasn't just about self-improvement, was it? He had a specific goal, a specific granary in mind.
That's right. He looked around at the political map. Chu was his home state, sure, but he sized it up, along with the other 6 states still around, and thought, nope, none of them seemed dynamic enough, decisive enough for him.
Huh?
He zeroed in on the state of Qin. That, he decided, was the only real option. That was the granary with potential for real power, real achievement.
And when he left Xunzi, he didn't exactly go quietly, did he? The sources mention some pretty strong words.
Yeah, he basically said that being poor and having low status was the ultimate shame, and that people should fight tooth and nail to get ahead. He even called people who pretended not to care about success hypocrites.
Wow, that's direct.
It shows this incredibly powerful, almost ruthless ambition driving him,
It really does. And it's such a contrast to, say, traditional Confucian ideas about virtue being the main thing and success maybe being secondary. It's like it seems purely focused on results, on power.
Utilitarian is a good word for it. And that clear, sharp focus, that stays with him. So he gets to Qin, and it's right around the time of this huge political shakeup. Lu Buwei is out.
Right, Lu Buwei's fall was massive. And then came this proposal, even more sweeping. Kick out all the foreign officials, the guest ministers. That must have put Li Si in a really tight spot, being from Chu himself.
Oh, absolutely. He was squarely in the crosshairs. He was about to be expelled. But instead of just packing his bags, he decided to fight back. With his best weapon, his words, his ability to argue, he wrote this formal petition, a memorial, to the king, even as he was basically on his way out the door.
Talk about a high-stakes gamble. What was his argument? How did he actually manage to persuade the king?
It was really clever. He used history and, frankly, what seems like common sense. He laid out how Qin had become powerful because of outsiders.
The historical precedent.
Exactly. He named names. Yu Yu, Bailey Shi, the famous Shangyang Zhongyi Fan Sui. pointing out that these guys, none of them originally from Qin, were crucial to the success of earlier Qin rulers like Duke Mu, Duke Zhao, King Hui, King Zhaoxiang.
So basically, look at your own history. We've thrived thanks to foreign talent.
Did he use any analogies? I feel like I remember reading about some.
He did, and they were powerful.
Yeah.
He said, Qin happily accepts beautiful silks, exotic music, pearls and jade from other states.
Yeah.
So why reject the people from those states? People who offer skills and knowledge.
Good point.
Yeah. And then the famous ones. Mount Tai is huge because it doesn't reject any soil. Big rivers and seas are vast because they accept every little stream. And critically, he argued, a great ruler shouldn't reject anyone, even common people, if they want to show true virtue.
That idea that openness leads to strength, it still holds up, doesn't it? But if his argument seems so logical now, what was really behind the push to expel everyone in the first place? The sources hint at more going on.
Right. It probably wasn't just about logic. It was likely tied into power struggles. After Lu Buwei fell, the native Qin nobility probably saw a chance to consolidate their own power, push out rivals.
And remember, both Lu Buwei and Lao Ai, another powerful figure who'd fallen, had built up huge networks of followers, many of them from other states. So the court might have seen all these guests as potential troublemakers, loyal to fallen patrons, not the king.
So a kind of clean sweep mentality, easier than sorting loyal from disloyal.
Probably something like that. It's worth noting, too, the sources we have, like the records of the Grand Historian and the Comprehensive Mirror, they don't quite agree on the exact timing of the expulsion order relative to Lu Buwei's removal. Little discrepancies like that pop up.
That happens with ancient history. But the impact of Li Si's memorial is clear, right? Even later writers commented on it.
Oh, definitely. Lu Xun, the famous modern writer, really praised Li Si's writing style. He pointed out that legalist thinkers weren't usually known for great prose, making Li Si stand out.
So it wasn't just persuasive, it was actually well written.
Apparently so. And crucially, it worked. The king read it, changed his mind, called Li Si back, gave him his job back, and scrapped the whole expulsion plan.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Just the power of a well-crafted argument changing state policy.
It really is. It shows his skill, his understanding of the king. And what's fascinating is how this whole crisis, this near disaster for him, actually ended up boosting his career.
Benefiting from misfortune. How did that work? How did almost getting kicked out actually help him?
Well, with Lu Buwei gone, there was probably some suspicion hanging over anyone associated with him. By challenging the expulsion order directly and succeeding, Li Si proved his own worth, his own judgment, directly to the king, Ying Zheng.
So he showed he wasn't just part of Lu Buwei's old crew. He was his own man, valuable in his own right.
Exactly. He navigated that danger and came out looking stronger, more independent, just as the king was consolidating his own power. And from that stronger position, he became absolutely central to the next big phase, Qin unifying all the states.
Right. The sources talk about a strategy being multidimensional, multi-layered. What did that actually involve on the ground?
It was a pretty comprehensive and you could say ruthless playbook. It wasn't just about armies. It was diplomacy, sure, but also espionage, bribing officials in other states, using assassination against key figures who couldn't be bought, deliberately driving wedges between rulers and their best ministers in other states, and then, backing it all up with military force when needed.
Wow, that's intense. A real cloak and dagger approach combined with open warfare. Very pragmatic. Maybe morally gray.
It fits with that early utilitarian view, doesn't it? The ends justify the means, and you can't argue with the results. It worked incredibly fast. Qin unified the states relatively quickly using these methods.
It seems like his fancy education under Sun Tzu was almost just the entry ticket, the shining label, as one source puts it. His real talent was this kind of political maneuvering.
That's a fair assessment, I think. His strength was in strategy, in execution, in understanding power, but that incredible rise, that power he achieved, it didn't last forever, did it?
No. The death of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, that changed everything. The second emperor comes to the throne, and things start to unravel for Li Si.
Dramatically. There's this incident where Li Si, along with two other top officials, Feng Quoji and Feng Ji, they submit a joint remonstrance, a criticism or piece of advice to the new emperor.
Okay, sounds like responsible officials doing their job.
Maybe, but in that paranoid Qin court with a young, insecure emperor, it was seen very differently. It looked like they were ganging up, forming a faction, trying to pressure him.
The clique problem. In a system built on one person having all the power, Any hint of ministers banding together is seen as a threat. The sources mention Xi's essay on this, right? About how emperors always feared factions.
Exactly. That fear is constant in imperial China. Seeing the top civil official, Li Si, and the top military official, Feng Quaji, acting together with another respected figure, that would have set off major alarms for the second emperor. He likely saw it as undermining his authority.
And the emperor's reaction wasn't subtle.
Not at all. Swift and brutal, all three were thrown into prison. Now, Feng Quaji and Feng Ji, they chose suicide in prison, perhaps to preserve some honor, avoid further humiliation. But Li Si, he decided to stick it out.
Why? What was he thinking?
He probably still believed in his own eloquence, believed in the weight of his contributions to Qin. Maybe he thought, I built this empire, surely I can talk my way out of this.
So he tries writing another memorial, this time from prison, and this one used that strange tactic, saying the opposite.
Yes, it's a fascinating rhetorical move. He basically lists all his greatest achievements for Qin, but frames them ironically as if they were his crimes.
So like, my first crime was helping Qin conquer more land?
Pretty much. My crime was unifying the 6 states. My crime was pushing back the barbarians. My crime was standardizing weights and measures and writing. He lays out this incredible record of service.
The subtext being, are these really crimes deserving death?
Precisely. It's a bold move, but it never reached the emperor.
Why not?
Zhao, the powerful eunuch who basically had the emperor's ear, he intercepted it, said a prisoner had no right to submit memorials, and just put it aside.
So Li Si completely misread the situation. The sources suggest he didn't really get how to handle an autocrat when you're in that kind of trouble.
It seems that way. Praising your own merits to an insecure emperor, that could easily backfire, look like arrogance or a challenge. What often worked better, historically, sadly, was groveling, admitting fault even if you were innocent, showing absolute loyalty.
Some sources even mention self-defamation, right? Basically making yourself look bad so the emperor doesn't see you as a threat.
Exactly. It's a grim aspect of court politics. Instead of highlighting his successes, maybe Li Si should have, confessed to something, anything, just to appease the emperor's paranoia.
But Zhao wasn't just blocking memorials, was he? He actively worked against Li Si.
Oh, absolutely. He orchestrated the interrogation, used fake officials pretending to be sent by the emperor. They tortured Li Si repeatedly until they got a confession.
Coerced confession.
Right. Then Zhao takes this fake confession to the second emperor and says basically, see, I saved you from this traitor Li Si. And the emperor, already suspicious and probably easily manipulated, bought it completely.
It's just chilling. The mechanics of that kind of political destruction.
Yeah.
And the end for Li Si was horrific.
Truly horrific. And tragically ironic, his son, Liu, actually died in battle fighting for Qin against rebels from Chu. Should have proved loyalty, right?
You'd think.
But Zhao twisted it. He framed Liu's death as evidence of the family's rebellion, led by Li Si. So Li Si gets sentenced to the 5 punishments.
Which were?
Remind us.
Tattooing the face, cutting off the nose, cutting off the feet, castration, and finally execution. And the execution method itself was Yu ear being cut in half at the waist.
Unbelievably brutal, and it wasn't just him. No. The sentence included exterminating his 3 clans. Now, what exactly 3 clans meant can be debated. Sometimes it meant parents, siblings, spouse, and children. Other times, wider relatives, maybe even extending to 9 clans. But the message was clear. Wipe out his entire family line. Total eradication.
And those last words, as he's being taken to his execution with his son, so incredibly sad.
Yeah. He reportedly turned to his son and said something like, I wish we could just take our yellow dog and go out the east gate of Shanghai back home to chase rabbits, but how can we do that now?
Oh, wow. After all that ambition, all that power, he just wants to go rabbit hunting.
It's this moment of profound regret, isn't it? A longing for the simple, ordinary life he gave up chasing the granary. Realizing far too late what really mattered, perhaps.
Stark contrast to him leaving his teacher, declaring poverty the ultimate shame. Though, our sources do add a little nuance, don't they? Suggesting life back in Shanghai might not have been idyllic either.
That's a fair point. It was a violent, chaotic time. Staying home might have meant being conscripted, facing bandits, starvation. Simple wasn't necessarily safe or easy back then. We shouldn't romanticize it too much.
True. It's complex. But still, that image of him longing for home, it sticks with you. And apparently he's still remembered there. List's, that poem by Jia Dao.
Yeah, the local connection endures. It brings his story full circle back to his roots, a reminder of the whole incredible arc. And again, typical of ancient records, there's even a slight disagreement between sources on the exact date of his death. Small details vary.
Minor inconsistencies, yeah. But the main story, the ambition, the brilliance, the unification, the fall,
Yeah.
it's consistent. So wrapping up this deep dive on Ulysses, what are the main things to take away?
Well, clearly, immense ambition, brilliant strategic mind, absolutely instrumental in creating unified China under Qin. But also, yeah, a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked power, political infighting, and how quickly favor can turn in an autocratic system.
Right. His rise was fueled by his own drive and intellect. But his fall was maybe just as much about the system he operated in, the paranoia of the rulers, Zhao Gao's manipulations.
Exactly. It wasn't just his own mistakes, though perhaps misjudging the second emperor was a fatal one. It was the whole environment.
Brings us back to that first question. How did he rise so high and fall so hard? It seems the answer is tangled up in his personality, the historical moment, and the brutal nature of Qin politics.
And maybe that leaves a question for you listening. Think about that tension, that age-old pull between ambition and just security. How do people navigate complex power systems then and now? Could Lisi have chosen differently? Were his choices inevitable given who he was and where he was? And maybe the biggest question, what actually makes for a successful life in the end?
Really profound things to think about. And of course, this has just been a glimpse into Lisi and the Qin dynasty. There's always so much more to explore. If you found this discussion useful, maybe learned something new, definitely hit that subscribe button. We do these deep dives regularly, exploring valuable ideas.
We appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.